right, guys. So you've probably heard the news by now. Elijah Robinson, interim head coach at Texas A&M, longtime beloved defensive line coach, has taken the defensive coordinator job at Syracuse, and understandably so. BAS is running rampant among Aggie Nation right now. I get it. I understand it. It's a big loss. Elijah was absolutely beloved by fans, other coaches, and particularly the players. He was a players' coach, a guy that the players gravitated to, and a guy that kept this team together through the ups and downs of this season, specifically the firing of Jimbo Fisher, getting the interim job and leading the team to a couple admirable performances, but ultimately losing to LSU in the end. Obviously, the team feels very strongly about Elijah Robinson. They love him vocally, emotionally. I mean, we know, we see it. It's very evident based on how these players talk about him, the clips we get from behind the scenes. I don't know if you guys watched the Pulse last week, seeing that tearful post-game speech after the loss to LSU. He had the players' hearts. There is no denying that this is a brutal loss for Texas A&M. A loss that we didn't necessarily expect even when we lost Jimbo Fisher. But I'll say this, before we let the BAS continue to run rampant, let's talk about where we are. When you fire Jimbo Fisher, your coach of 6 years, with a 10-plus year commitment, things are going to change. There's going to be shifts within the program. Coaches are going to leave, as we've already seen, in waves, not just E-Rob, obviously many others that you already know about. Players will leave. Further players will leave. If E-Rob would have stayed, further players still would have left. This is what happens when you fire a head coach. You deal with instability. You deal with change. We have to trust the process, at least for now. I'm not going to deny it. Texas A&M is going to lose some players. Texas A&M is going to lose more players now than they would have while E-Rob was still on staff. The players just loved him that much, particularly on this defense and very much particularly on this defensive line. You're going to see names leave. But let's talk about a couple things before we get to that. Before you come to the conclusion that Elko is leading this ship astray in his first week at the helm. We have had every indication that Mike Elko is a structured, organized, and hardworking head coach. We do not need to act like there isn't a plan. What comes to my head after E-Rob moves on is, what is the message in this locker room? What are these players doing? What are they thinking? And what are these coaches telling them? What kind of dialogue are they having? I'm very curious about that. But more so, I'm curious about what the big picture plan for this roster going into next year is. We have heard rumblings that Elko is willing and ready to use this portal to his advantage. What I've been saying since this thing happened, you're going to have players leave, but as quickly as it falls apart in the portal era, you can build it back up. It's not going to be the same regime next year. We know that at this point. We've also heard this week that Connor Wigman, on a Texags video, we've heard that Connor Wigman is very much locked into this team. So players are going to leave, but players are also going to stay. Now, what is really interesting here is we're going to find out exactly how good of a job Texas A&M is. Exactly how good of a destination Texas A&M is. Because you're losing one of your best recruiting boons in Elijah Robinson. What can Texas A&M do? What can Elko in this new hot rod that he's piloting do in the realm of recruiting? You've already had a decommit from Cam Coleman. Gabriel Relaford decommitted minutes or hours after E-Rob moved on, following an LSU visit from the same weekend. What are they going to build now that it's falling apart? We're going to learn a lot. This is our first data point for the Mike Elko era, is this offseason, this transfer portal season, this early signing day period, going into this bowl game. Let's see what this man can do. You know there's a plan. We've already heard him making waves in the Texas high school coaching realm, taking many visits. Of course, rumblings, maybe they're optimistic rumblings that he's communicating with players and high school coaches more than Jimbo ever did. That's positive. Read into that what you will. But we got to see what Elko can put together. I see people jumping off the ship already. I see people calling it a failure already, saying he's in over his head. I'm seeing that. Do you guys believe that? And if you do, I'll listen to an argument. I want to hear it. What do you guys think about Elko's early tenure at Texas A&M? We're reviewing it a weekend. That's where we are as a fan base. Of course, we're on edge. It's a tough weekend. All right, guys, I'm doing a short video today just updating you on what happened in this conference championship weekend, especially how it relates to Texas A&M. I'm going to talk about the games, talk about the playoff, obviously. A very familiar team made it into the playoff. We'll talk about that. Guys, if you like this kind of content, please consider liking and subscribing. I do a live show every Wednesday. That's going to occur throughout the off season, and I'll throw extra shows like this one in as needed, as news develop or as things come up. I'll also do an extra live show as needed to give you guys an opportunity to have the mic and give me your opinions about the state of the program. We're going to do a second live show this week. There will be one Monday, 8 p.m. If you're catching this before that video, jump in. We have a lot of fun talking. It's a call-in show, so you guys have an opportunity to talk. I interact with you guys in the chat, and then we'll resume with our regularly scheduled Wednesday show, 8 p.m. Central Time. So jump into that, like and subscribe. Appreciate you guys. We've been growing like crazy. So yeah, overall, just let things play out. I've noticed a common theme since I started doing this stuff in reactions I hear, because I'm more, I guess, hands-on with the fan base now that I create these videos and I create content regarding Texas A&M. People don't let things play out before they draw their conclusions. I think we need to let this play out because Elko's a week in. Let's see. Let this man cook. Let this man cook. Elko was not willing to give Elijah Robinson the defensive coordinator job. At least that's what we think and assume. We know that he was going to allow E-Rob to become the highest paid assistant in the country. But E-Rob bet on himself by taking the defensive coordinator position at Syracuse with his old friend near where he was born. He's a New Jersey guy. Syracuse is under 5 hours from New Jersey. It's a quick flight. It's a drivable distance. He's closer to home. His family can come see games. It makes a lot of sense for him to move on. And it's not like he's going to an immediate recruiting contender with Texas A&M. It's not like he's going to LSU or Texas or anything like that. He's going to Syracuse. He's betting on himself. I would wager he's taking a pay decrease. We don't know that yet. But he's increasing in his title. He's becoming a coordinator. He's doing it at a Power 5 job. I don't know. There are many places he would have had that opportunity. But he got it there. And I do not blame him for taking that. Because you know a guy like E-Rob has aspirations of becoming a head coach. And I am pretty damn confident that he eventually will be. So good for E-Rob. Good for that man. We love him. We respect him. We're going to miss him. Moving on from that. It was conference championship weekend. We saw pretty much everything hold suit in terms of favorites winning besides Bama beating Georgia, which was pretty crazy. This was supposed to be a down year for Bama. And they have done nothing but win since losing in week 2 to Texas. Nick Saban masterclass. This team has gotten better and better. It was unstable to start the year. Jalen Milroe didn't start week 3. He got benched for whatever reason. I don't know. You can read into that what you will. There have been rumors about that. But now Milroe's looking like he's going to come back next year as a Heisman contender. The kind of guy that can change a game. He's the most athletic player on the field at times at quarterback. It's an impressive coaching job by Nick Saban. Great Alabama defense. I say the thing that separates their defense from our defense, Texas A&M might have a better front seven, but Bama's secondary takes that defense above and beyond. It's a balanced, really good defense, and those receivers have come together on offense. O-line has come together. Hats off to Bama. What can you say? And then the other significant one, of course, Michigan, Washington. Not really regionally significant to us, but I think Washington's a damn good team. I don't think Michigan is by far and away the best team in the country, but I have no problem seeing them be seeded 1 in this 4-team tournament. Of course, the 3rd seed was Texas, and that's just a bummer for us Aggies. Obviously, it's a rival. It's a recruiting rival. For me, I can stomach seeing Texas in there, whatever. I have Texas friends. I mean, they already have the upper hand on us anyways. We need to win something before we're concerned about what they're doing anyways, and I totally understand. Talk your shit about them. Do what you have to do all day. What bums me out is the recruiting implications. That's an immediate recruiting rivalry. They're in the state. They're an hour away driving. They're in the SEC. That does suck. Which is why I say we're about to find out what the hell Texas A&M as a destination is made of. Now that E-Rob is gone, Jimbo is gone, and you have an up-and-comer in Mike Elko, who is ready to use everything that Texas A&M has to offer at his disposal and to his will to build this roster for 2024 and beyond. So a couple of major blows this weekend, guys. Texas moving up in the world and E-Rob moving out of A&M. What is Texas A&M made of? A couple other notes I want to give you guys. Anaya Smith going pro. I'm sure you've heard the news by now. Apparently he broke a finger in the LSU game. He is not going to be healthy for the bowl game. So we've seen Anaya Smith's last game in maroon and white. Just a great Aggie. The best receiver since Christian Kirk. Maybe the best offensive player since that guy too. Just an absolute stud, a consistent force, a leader, and a great guy. We're going to miss him. It's his time to move on. He had another year of eligibility left. You totally understand him making the decision to move on. He's been in college for 5 or 6 years. 5 years, I believe. Yes, 5 years. He's been in college for 5 years. It's his time. It's time for Anais to make his name in the NFL. See where he goes. See how he tests. We're all rooting for him. Bless Anaya Smith. Bowl game got announced. Oklahoma State Texas Bowl, which is very disappointing to a lot of people. I will say this as a positive. You're playing in Texas, and Elko is trying to really make his stamp on the Texas recruiting scene right now. So at least you're front and center for a lot of high school coaches, a lot of high school players who might watch that game or be invested in that game locally. It's also an 8 p.m. game at night. The other options for Texas A&M's bowl games that weren't the Texas Bowl were all like noon kickoffs or 1 o'clock kickoffs. At least you get prime time in Texas, and I think it's very clear that Elko is starting his recruiting search inward, and he's going to work himself outward over time, which I think is very wise to do. There's plenty of talent to go around in Texas. Not to mention, he himself has New Jersey connections, being a New Jersey guy. He has East Coast connections coming from Duke. I think it's okay given the circumstances. You won 7 games this year. You can't be too picky. Oklahoma State, I think they're a team that can be had. They're a team that lost to South Alabama, got blown out by UCF. But they're also a team that beat Oklahoma. You never know what you're going to get from them. Mike Gundy had a good year coaching. You want to go out there and impose your will on a team that you think you can. We don't know who's all going to be playing for this bowl game or not. It's going to be interesting to see who opts out, who transfers, given the recent news. It's going to be interesting to see who coaches this game. Is Elijah going to stick around and coach this game? He might. But we know a bunch of offensive coaches are out, and we know we haven't made an offensive or defensive coordinator hire just yet. Is Elko going to have to step up and coach? I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see. Besides that, guys, that was the weekend in Aggie football. Of course, you wish A&M was involved this weekend. That's the goal here. You want A&M to be involved in the postseason shenanigans that is the 12-team playoff going forward. Everything is still in place right now. You still haven't had the transfers out. It's going to happen, guys. A&M is about to lose some players. But A&M is also set to gain a lot of players in the portal this year. NIL is still very, very strong at Texas A&M. Still rated as the highest level NIL program in the country by many metrics. So, guys, we're going to have to wait and see what happens. Once again, I urge you to let Mike Elko cook. Give him a chance. Look, if things don't work out, I'll be right here with you guys, acknowledging it, talking about what happens next. But for now, and for quite a while, we need to let things play out. So with that, I'll see you in the Monday night show. And if you missed that, I'll see you Wednesday. Thanks. Gig 'em.